Since we have just the other day passed the MCU's 11th birthday, and we have just sort of rounded up 11 years of storytelling, it is time to count down the top 22 MCU movies. Now, we'll tell you one thing before we get into any of this. There will be spoilers for every single movie on this list, pretty much, including Avengers Endgame, especially since you really cannot talk about that movie without talking spoilers. Also, every MCU movie is going to be on here. This is all 22 MCU movies ranked from worst to best, of course, so you'll see absolute not so great movies to absolute great movies. Anyways, let's begin. This is top 22 MCU movies, 22 to 12. I think we can all agree that the worst and most forgettable MCU movie is Thor the Dark World. I'd honestly say that it makes all the other ones look phenomenal in comparison. Now, it's definitely not the worst superhero movie, and definitely far from the worst Marvel movie, but it's even further from the best one. Not to mention, it's got the worst MCU villain in Malekith, in which I cannot tell you a single line in the movie he said. In fact, if you can tell me one thing he said, let me know in the comments, because I'll be responding with, what a surprise. To be honest, it's so forgettable, I can't even say anything more than that. Okay, I don't think anything can rival Thor the Dark World for how forgettable it is, but Iron Man 2 is really forgettable too. Not only that, I'd say the main problem with this movie are all the plot points the movie is trying to deal with. Whether it's Whiplash, Black Widow, the government, Justin Hammer, or Stark's daddy issues. Whenever you start to get interested and invested in one, it moves on to the next. Not really giving you much time to, get invested in any of the plots. And the one thing you probably came to see it for, which is like Iron Man fighting baddies and stuff like that, is not till like the last 10 minutes of the movie. It just shows how it's MCU Phase 1 trying to find its footing. Though it is only number 20, The Incredible Hulk is not as bad as everyone says it is. It's at number 20 and not higher because it doesn't have that MCU polish. Even the previous two movies did. So this doesn't really even feel like an MCU movie. Especially since Edward Norton never returned to play the Hulk. There was never a sequel to this movie yet, and it's hardly even ever acknowledged as a part of the MCU anyways. However, even if Mark Ruffalo is a better Bruce Banner, Edward Norton was really good too, and I feel that the final battle between Hulk and Abomination is underrated. Now it seems that they've done something pretty cool with the Hulk in Endgame with Professor Hulk, so hopefully we can get a Professor Hulk movie. But we'll just have to wait and see about that one. Yep, we're only at number 19 and we already have 2 Thor movies. I guess there was something wrong with Thor movies. There really is not much to this one. It's got a much better villain than Loki though, as, he's way more interesting. We know a lot more about him, and we actually see him a lot more throughout this entire universe, not only the movie. Similar to Iron Man 2, however, it shows how the MCU is still trying to find its footing in Phase 1. It can be entertaining at times, like when it deals with stuff like family, and even some of the fight scenes are pretty cool. But it's still clearly Phase 1. It's a pretty good movie, though. Captain Marvel came out at a time that I would say the MCU was pretty much at its peak, coming out pretty much in between Infinity War and Endgame. That being said, it's surprisingly average. It's definitely not as entertaining as it probably should have been, but it's not that bad. I do like how Brie Larson, how she was a good Captain Marvel, and it does have a good cast beyond that. Samuel L. Jackson, you got Clark Gregg, Ben Mendelsohn, and Jude Law all in this movie. It's got a good cast and everything, but it's very unfaithful to the source material. I also hate the way Nick Fury lost his eye. If you remember in Winter Soldier, Nick Fury said,
"Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye."
Well, now we know he trusted a cat. He trusted a cat. I also hate what they did with the Skrulls. In the comics, they are pretty much not to be with, as they can assume the identity of anyone. In this movie, they are just misunderstood people trying to live a normal life. That sounds good, but it just doesn't connect with what the Skrulls are supposed to be. So that really bugged me. I don't know, hopefully we can get a Secret Invasion movie or something like that. It just has issues that were resolved in Phase 1. Many people hate Iron Man 3, but it's not that bad, I would say. Sure, it's not as great as, let's say, the first Iron Man, but similar to Iron Man 2, this movie does have many plot lines that just get abandoned, but not within the same movie, more like within the next movie Tony Stark is in. I do like the relationship between Iron Man and the kid throughout the movie. I thought that was good. I also like the action sequences that I found pretty good. My personal favorite being the climax, but the airplane rescue scene was also pretty cool. It's mainly not higher because of one thing, the Mandarin. What a missed opportunity right there. Coming after one of the biggest movies ever, being the first Avengers, Age of Ultron had a lot of weight on its shoulders. The result was kinda mixed, though I love the final battle of the movie, or the scene where Vision picks up Mjolnir, or the deeper emotions. It's got a lot of stuff that I'd argue did better than the first Avengers movie, or if not just as good. But the plot is way more complicated and the story moves so fast you can actually probably get lost at times. I also think that Ultron as a villain was a bit too underwhelming and lame for my liking. It is an Avengers movie at heart though, so I suggest you do give it a watch, but it's definitely the weakest Avengers movie. Captain America the First Avenger, I feel, gets commonly overlooked, as you do have to look at the films that followed. However, it turned Captain America, a superhero many people found to be bland, into a pop culture icon. I love the way it tells you Captain America's origin, like including that scene in the beginning where Steve Rogers gets the flag.
No! Come on, get up there! That's all you got! This army's in trouble! Get up there, Hodge! Come on, get up there! Nobody's got that flag in 17 years! Now fall back in the line! Come on, fall in! Let's go! Get back into formation! Rogers! I said fall in!
But when the Red Skull comes, it seems to sort of slow down for me. That is what stops the movie from placing higher on the list. AntMan is a bit of a different movie, as it's more of a heist movie. It's good, but it's a lot less ambitious than some of the other Marvel movies on this list, and it also plays it way more safe. However, that's just part of the movie's charm. I love the performances from Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas as Ant-Man and Hank Pym, as well as Michael Peña's stories in the movie, in which one of them included Stan Lee cameo. Rest in peace, legend. Again, this movie sort of just plays it safe, but, again, part of the movie's charm. Yeah, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is just a little bit better than the first Ant-Man. Coming right after Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a lot much lighter and much less ambitious of a film. Aside from that damn after-credits scene, though. Oh boy.
Ha ha, very funny. Hank, quit screwing around. You told me yourself not to screw around. Hank! Oh? Janet!
The villains, however, aren't a huge threat, and that scene at the end with Janet Van Dyne and the Ghost did sort of defeat the majority of the movie's conflict. It's still an enjoyable movie, though. Just plays it safe. But again, that's the charm. I've heard many people say this movie just isn't good. I've also heard others say that they love it. I'm on the latter side. In fact, I'd say it should close out and top the first half of my list. Though it's not as good as the first one, I don't think any Guardians of the Galaxy movie, a future Guardians of the Galaxy movie will be. But I'd say it's just got more jokes in it, or better jokes overall, although some of them can feel a bit messed up, like when Drax is making fun of Mantis, or when everyone is talking about their penises. However, I just find a much better villain in Ego, the Living Planet, than Ronan the Accuser, even if all Ego did at the beginning of the movie was just deliver exposition. I also love how we got more in depth with characters like Nebula and especially Yondu, and his death is pretty sad. It's just a fun movie to watch, and is why it tops the first half of my list of the best MCU movies. That was 22 to 12. Stay tuned for next time when I do 11 to 1. Be sure to like this video, comment, subscribe. Do you agree with this first half of the list? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!